Now, coming up tonight, we're going to review how Senator Collins bravely restored sanity and order to the U.S. Senate. Meanwhile, predictably, the left is now in a full meltdown mode, and it is very ugly. They have been exposed. They tried to ruin a man's life for political gain. It turned the confirmation process for the U.S. Supreme Court into a circus and something, frankly, befitting of a banana republic. And now, with just 32 days till the all-important midterm elections, it is time as a country that we examine everything that is at stake for this great country of ours. This kind of lawless, shameful behavior, not only should it not be tolerated or accepted by we the people, it has got to stop. And we can never forget how we now have a group of people that have embraced smear, slander, lies, bludgeoning, to literally smashing and slashing all fundamental basic rights that has served us so well. All right, sit tight. The weekend is almost here. Not yet. Kavanaugh's vote is tomorrow, and it is time for tonight's Friday Breaking News Opening Monologue. All right, before I get to all of the breaking news today, and there is a lot, I want to take a minute. I want to say something. I have never witnessed a speech on the U.S. Senate floor that was as powerful as the speech today given by Senator Collins of Maine. Her remarks today. I've been in talk radio now 30 years. Tomorrow, incidentally, I begin my 23rd year here at the Fox News Channel. It was, frankly, the best speech I ever witnessed in the U.S. Senate. It was an example on how all senators should make decisions and conduct themselves. Senator Collins was methodical, thoughtful, respectful, clearly did her homework, laid out her judicial philosophy, that of Judge Kavanaugh. She showed a grasp of the Constitution, Supreme Court precedents, and she gave a chilling and sad description of the environment that we're all living in today. It was truly a modern-day profile in courage. Frankly, I don't know Susan Collins, and I don't know her well at all. I don't get impressed that often, but the speech today, it frankly blew me away, and she should be proud. And frankly, it had a lot less to do with her decision, although that's very important in all of this, than the pure human decency, fairness, and process that she employed to get to her decision. Let's take a look.
Today, we have come to the conclusion of a confirmation process that has become so dysfunctional, it looks more like a caricature of a gutter-level political campaign than a solemn occasion. Judge Kavanaugh has received rave reviews for his 12-year track record as a judge, including for his judicial temperament. The American Bar Association gave him its highest possible rating. In evaluating any given claim of misconduct, we will be ill-served in the long run if we abandon the presumption of innocence and fairness. I listened carefully to Christine Blasey Ford's testimony before the Judiciary Committee. I found her testimony to be sincere, painful, and compelling. The 4 witnesses she named could not corroborate any of the events of that evening gathering where she says the assault occurred. None of the individuals Professor Ford says were at the party has any recollection at all of that night. The facts presented do not mean that Professor Ford was not sexually assaulted that night or at some other time, but they do lead me to conclude that the allegations failed to meet the more likely than not standard. Therefore, I do not believe that these charges can fairly prevent Judge Kavanaugh from serving on the court. Mr. President, I will vote to confirm Judge Kavanaugh.
I have not always agreed with Senator Collins, and even some things she said in her speech I disagree with in terms of precedents and the law. That's not the issue. She bravely restored common sense, decency to the U.S. Senate today and led by example. And she had to stand up to a very angry left-wing mob. And she stood for principles that make this country great, showed real courage. Now, she took this process from the very beginning seriously. She protected the sanctity of the U.S. Constitution, due process, presumption of innocence. And in doing so, she exposed what is the hyper-partisan, frankly destructive nature of so many smear merchants that exist on the left today. And by the way, there are some on the right, too. Senator Lindsey Graham, who's going to be joining us in a few minutes with Senator Ted Cruz, he also tonight deserves a lot of credit. His powerful moment, it lit a fire for truth, justice, and decency in this country. Many Democrats proclaimed their opposition to Judge Kavanaugh within seconds of his nomination. Others upended his hearings with endless interruptions, grandstanding, the worst of the worst. And then worst of all, many Senate Democrats actually went along with accusing Brett Kavanaugh of even being a rapist, a gang rapist, no presumption of innocence at all, drugging girls routinely at parties. They called him evil, compared him to Bill Cosby. Men were told to sit down and shut up. They did this with zero corroborating evidence and based on 36-year-old claims that were backed up by nobody. The Republicans took this rightly serious. It's a serious topic. Lawmakers, some of them, they didn't care. They wanted to ruin a man's life and his reputation forever. And I'm pretty certain tonight, Brett Kavanaugh, his wife, his two young daughters, I'm sure they'll never be the same again. We as a country cannot reward this madness, meanness, insanity. Now, many on the left are lashing out at Senator Collins, predictably. An opinion website owned by Univision called Splinter published a piece entitled Bleep Susan Collins. It's all over the place. If you look, don't even read social media. You know, nutjob, so-called comedian Kathy Griffin, you know, the one that had the severed head of Donald Trump, telling Collins to go to hell tonight. And the official Twitter of the Women's March published this picture, calls Senator Susan Collins a, quote, rape apologist. This is so over the top, so despicably ugly and disgusting. Wouldn't many of these same people that claim to have a monopoly of compassion for women, minorities, human civil rights, wouldn't they be showing outrage if any conservative in this country ever said and did such things? It's a very dangerous time for this country. Weeks prior to her speech, Susan Collins had left-wing activists sending thousands of coat hangers to her office. They made threatening, derogatory calls to her staff. They tried to bribe her with a crowdfunding campaign. And an angry mob of left-wing protesters harassing senators all over Capitol Hill. This is now getting dangerous. Take a look.
Very much concerned basically with the such things that people have to endure, and very much concerned that we have to do something as a country.
Don't put a liar on the court. Don't put a liar on the court. Don't put a liar on the court. Don't put a liar on the court.
The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. The system is corrupt, and that's why we disrupt. Leave women! Leave women! Leave survivors! Leave survivors! Leave women! Leave women! Leave survivors! Leave survivors! Leave women!
Now, let me say something. And I really believe the people should be close to their elected representatives. And it's sad what I'm about to say. Before somebody gets hurt or worse, these office areas of elected officials now need to be closed to the public. Sad, but it needs to happen. This is now dangerous and out of control. And of course, the left predictably acting out in ways on TV that are frankly unconscionable. In many cases on so-called news networks. Take a look.
When, not if, when Judge Kavanaugh helps them to chip away at civil rights, voting rights, women's rights, abortion rights. I don't think it's going to sit very well with the country.
Let's not forget these people would go to church and then go to the lynching after clothing themselves in morality. And that's what we're